on some entertainment news for you. This is a story that we have been following all week for everyone, all of you who are watching here on News Now, as legal battles continue over a conservatorship that pop star Britney Spears has lived under for more than a decade. Fans from all over the world have rallied behind the singer, reigniting the Free Britney movement and asking that she be released from that conservatorship, which has long been run by her father, Jamie Spears. Well, our very own Stephanie Weaver of News Now, if you watch on the weekends, you've probably seen her, spoke with Kevin Federline's attorney. He spoke out about that Free Britney movement that's going on right now. Kevin is the ex-husband of Britney. This is a really interesting conversation, so we'll play out that interview for you. And then I actually spoke with Stephanie about the story. So we'll listen in here.
A new documentary was released and pop singer Britney Spears returns to court regarding her conservatorship. I'm joined by Mark Vincent Kaplan, a family attorney member to Kevin Federline, Spears' ex-husband. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
My pleasure.
So let's go back to 2008 because you were in the thick of it. Britney Spears was placed under the conservatorship, but you were also the attorney in the custody proceedings with the two children. Can you just walk me through that timeline?
Well, at that particular time, as you may recall, there was a lot of turmoil going on, I think, in Britney's life, resulting in an emergency hearing that whereby the court made an order giving Kevin sole legal and sole physical custody, with Britney having monitored visitation. As things progressed and as she progressed over time, that was changed to the point where a judgment was ultimately entered where they have what's called shared physical custody. That's been modified somewhat over time, sometimes because of the necessities of court touring, sometimes because of other issues. But right now, according to the operative legal court order, it's 70-30 timeshare in favor of Kevin. However, they have modified that voluntarily between themselves, where Kevin has somewhat more than that at the present time.
Now, that custody hearing in 2008, do you feel that sparked or impacted the conservatorship that happened in 2008?
Well, I don't know what the nexus was necessarily between that, but it certainly was a low watermark of where she seemingly was not making good decisions. And I'm sure at that point, again, I don't speak for the conservatorship. I'm not privy to what goes on that side of the case, but I'm sure that was a catalyst in decisions being made that something needs to be done to protect the kids from erratic decisions. And I think that probably was a catalyst in the decisions of others to see what we can do to stabilize the environment that the kids are going to be exercising their custody with their parents in.
Well, we all remember, at least I remember in 2008, the tabloid images of Britney Spears' shaved head. Do you think that the media or the paparazzi misrepresented her in any way that would not be accurate and potentially cause a longer conservatorship?
Well, I mean, I don't know. There was certainly a lot of softballs tossed out for the media for them to have sensationalized coverage. Whether or not they gave her the opportunity to explain, I'm doing this because I want to get away from everything that has burdened me with up till now, as opposed to just somebody would only shave their head if they were untethered from some type of reality. You know, I don't know, but obviously, I mean, you know that that was probably the most heavily followed family law case in history on an international basis. And obviously they were looking for an angle that was sensational. And the fact that I think Britney gave them a lot of softballs that tied into that particular perspective only heightened the sensationalism and hysteria around that particular time. That fortunately is a time long under the bridge from now.
So let's go back to basics. What does it mean that Britney is now under a conservatorship?
Well, a conservatorship, uh, generally speaking, there's a conservatorship over the estate of the person, which is having others, if not make decisions for the conservatee as it relates to the management of their property and their estate, certainly assisting them in making good decisions. In the conservatorship proceeding today, Britney has an attorney. The conservators have an attorney. There's a probate court that really oversees everything and has to have approval of everything that's going on, of any significant material decisions relating to her estate. Then there's a conservatorship over the person. I think that's where most of the turmoil seems to be coming right now. Her father was the conservator over the estate of the person for a while. I don't know more than what I read in the press, but Britney was not in favor of that. And I think that's where the disconnect is coming from right now, where she wants to do that. I'm aware of the Free Britney movement, but I certainly think that, let's face reality, we're not living in Los Angeles as some kind of fascist gulag where somebody who has a conservatorship needs to write a coded message on the back of a piece of birch bark and throw it over a fence to get the message out. So I do think that's more being read into her being a prisoner of that, if you will. That's the term I've heard used many times, than she otherwise would. She has her own attorney in the probate matter, in the conservatorship matter, and I'm sure that she could express how she felt about it, and I think she is expressing how she feels about it through her lawyer there. Kevin is not involved in the conservatorship. He doesn't know whether there should or shouldn't be a conservatorship, and he doesn't speak or raise an opinion in that regard. The only thing that he's concerned about is whether the existence of the conservatorship enhances the ability for the boys to be in a safe and structured environment when they're with their mom. And we have no reason to believe that that isn't a beneficial factor in that decision.
If the conservatorship were to change, could that affect the legality of custody with the children?
Well, if the conservatorship changed in the sense that it was no longer in place, there would have to be some further scrutiny as to how custody is being exercised, what are the conditions that it's being exercised under. But we don't know about that. We don't have any reason to believe that the conservatorship, although it's been called a temporary conservatorship for almost 10 years, is going not to be in place. But if it wasn't in place, we would probably turn a more cautious eye to make sure that everything is stable and structured over there when the boys go see their mom.
Usually a conservatorship is with a ailing family member, somebody that can't take care of themselves. Do you see this trend increasing among young celebrities?
This is somewhat of a hybrid factual situation, but I don't think it's going to be increasing. I really don't. Look, I am aware of the fact that immediately prior to the conservatorship being placed over Ms. Spears, her finances were in a terrible state of disarray. There are multiple lawsuits around for breaches of contract and things like that. And now, based on what I've seen in the press, her estate's north of $50 to $60 million. So from that standpoint, it seems to me the conservatorship has benefited her financially in that regard. The trade-off as far as how it impacts her personal freedom or creativity, I can't speak to that.
Well, when we look at Britney Spears and we see her having her residency in Vegas, and we see her still active in some ways, do you think that it's overblown in what she can and cannot do?
I don't know that her not wanting to perform any further, at least temporarily, is attributable to anything more than exhaustion, which you can imagine. That kind of regimen in Las Vegas is a very taxing regimen to go through. However, I don't know whether she's being forced to do anything against her will, and she certainly had the ability to say, I don't want to renew the Las Vegas show, and she's capable of making that decision. I don't know that that decision is being challenged.
I know that Britney Spears would like to be under a temporary conservator, Jody Montgomery, I guess permanently, correct? Does Kevin Federline have any comment or opinion on Jody Montgomery taking over?
Well, Kevin feels that with what little interaction he has with Jody Montgomery, from where he stands, in his view, she's doing an excellent job. And it's been very easy for him to be able to get things for the boys that were necessary. And he has nothing but praise for Miss Montgomery's job so far.
Does Kevin feel that Britney Spears, should still stay under a conservatorship?
He has no opinion in that regard. Again, we don't really know what's going on that side. We only know whether custody is being exercised in a responsible and secure fashion, which it is. And he expresses no opinion in that regard, and he has no desire to get involved on that side. There's plenty of people on that side in many different roles that will speak to that, who are qualified to speak to that if in time the time comes for the court to decide whether this temporary conservatorship will become permanent or whether it will be vacated or dissolved.
Do the children have any knowledge of this conservatorship? Do you know how they're impacted in any way?
I really can't speak to that. I really don't want to talk about what's going on in the children's awareness or not. All I can say is the children are doing really well, and Kevin is enjoying watching them grow into young men.
You've covered this for over a decade. Any last takeaways about this entire process?
I think that there are many different layers of protection for Britney Spears as a conservatee, and I don't think anyone should be worried that in some way it's being abused for persons who have control with a conflict of interest, because the longer the conservatorship extends itself, the more money they can charge and be paid. I don't think that's a valid, it's a concern, but I don't think it's one that's founded in actuality. So the probate court is going to make the decisions that are based on what's best for the conservatee, including whether or not it's necessary, and if so, whether it continues or not. And at that time, whether or not the family law court has any involvement, we'll have to wait and see.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
You're watching News Now from Fox. Obviously played out that entire interview with Stephanie Weaver, and she's joining us now to kind of break down this whole story. It has been wild this week, Steph.
Oh yeah, it has been wild. It has actually been wild for the entire year, because back in September and October, Britney wanted to get out of that conservatorship. And so it has just been legal battle after legal battle, really for the last 6 to 8 months. And her conservatorship, as you know, has been going on for over a decade now. So the Free Britney movement, after that documentary came out, has just exploded across social media.
I know, and I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon, but let's touch on this interview that you just did. Great get, by the way, talking to him. But I think the lead was kind of buried here. In that last question that you asked him, he said that he doesn't think that the concerns about the conservatorship are founded in actuality. That's going to piss some people off who are part of this Free Britney movement situation.
Oh, that lead was definitely buried.
Yeah.
Starting off with softballs, but at the very end, we heard that maybe he believes that the conservatorship is actually benefiting Britney Spears. This is coming from Kevin Federline's family attorney. That's Britney Spears' ex-husband, is Kevin Federline, saying that the conservatorship may have actually protected her and offered protections in some way. But that's very interesting because that's very different than what we've seen over the past week with the Free Britney movement, with all of her fans rallying behind her, saying that she needs to be out of this conservatorship, that she is a prisoner in some way. And he is not backing them and saying that maybe this actually offers some protections. Some of the other things that he said was that he does not see this conservatorship going away anytime soon. And I thought that was very interesting as well, saying, I said, will this conservatorship change if it goes away? And he said he doesn't really see it going away, but if it did, then he would need to start looking at that for Kevin Federline's sake, because he is the family attorney for Kevin Federline, which they have the 2 children together. And he was part of that custody battle back in 2008 when they were dealing with the custody of the 2 children. So it is very interesting that he is more siding on the idea that this may be protecting her versus that this may be a bad situation for her.
Yeah, there's theories that swirl around on social media all the time. You see them going through Twitter, whatever. I don't think that's going to go away. Do you?
Oh, absolutely not. No, it is not. And it's interesting because what Kaplan, the attorney, also said during this, which I find was interesting, was that he said back in 2008, this is when he was the attorney covering that custody with the 2 children. He said that her finances were in disarray, that she had many breaches of contract, and it suggested that conservatorship, he believed, should have been in place. He didn't say it should have been placed, but that's what it suggested, that with her finances in disarray, and that's what a conservatorship does. It does handle the finances in one part of it. Yeah. But he said from what he's seen in the press, is that her house is worth $50 to $60 million, and that he thinks that it looks like she's doing way better off. So that's why, in one way, he says that maybe these protections are doing or have done better for her, and have been a positive aspect for her. But again, finances are just one thing. This is why we have, in a conservatorship, you have the estate and you have the person. The estate is between Bessemer Trust and her father. And then the person is Jody Montgomery, which is a temporary conservator, only because her father had an illness in 2019 and stepped down from being the conservator for the person, for Britney Spears' personal aspect. When I asked about Jody Montgomery, Kaplan said that Kevin Federline thinks that Jody is doing an excellent job, has been great for the kids and getting things done for the kids. So it sounded like Kevin Federline is very happy with this temporary conservator, and that is who Britney Spears, I have heard, wants to be the full-time conservator for her, but that is, of course, yet to be determined, because she is only the temporary conservator until at least, I believe it is September of 2021.
Yeah, I mean, you asked some really great questions throughout the interview, talking about how the media has portrayed Britney, asked about the kids a little bit there, and you could see the attorney kind of take a step back and not want to answer those questions as much. Do you think that Kevin might start to be more of a part of the spotlight at this point in time, just like, Justin Timberlake, as of today, getting a lot more light shined on him too? Do you think that there's going to be more celebrities that are pulled into this, I guess you could call kind of a scandal? I don't know.
I absolutely believe so. I think that there is a lot of celebrity focus right now. A lot of celebrities are coming out in defense of Britney, #FreeBritney, on celebrity social media posts, and you're seeing it all over social media. Whether Kevin Federline will have an opinion on this remains to be seen. Obviously, during the interview, we saw that Kaplan said that he had no opinion about it. And he's largely remained quiet over the last few years, especially as this conservatorship has taken hold. However, that being said, when you have such a big documentary come out that is just touching everybody, it usually kind of prompts some celebrities to come out and say, either from their PR people or just as humans wanting to come out and at least shed some light or say something about it, which is what we saw with Justin Timberlake. He was getting a lot of heat this week after that documentary, and he came out. So it remains to be seen if Kevin Federline will actually come out at some point and talk about it. But as of now, he is silent.
Yeah, definitely a sense of protection and PR that we're starting to see here and probably will continue to see. Anything else that we should touch on about this story?
Well, I know that Kevin Federline, as what Kaplan said, that the kids are doing great. So on the personal aspect, it sounds like the conservatorship has worked out, at least as far as them seeing the kids. What I found interesting was right now it is a 70-30 split, meaning that in Kevin's favor, he can see the kids 70% of the time and Britney can see the kids 30% of the time. But what I found was very interesting is on a voluntary just talks between the former couple, that he is getting potentially more time than that 70%. That has been just talked about between Britney and Kevin, but I thought that was just a little interesting insight that potentially the kids are seeing Kevin even more than that 70%.
I know. It's just so wild to be thinking about these huge celebrities as humans like you and me with families, but they're definitely in the spotlight. So it's a different lifestyle that they're living, right?
Oh, and she was under this conservatorship at 26 years old. She's 39 now.
I know.
And she's active. I mean, she's done her tour, her residency, not since 2018. You know, there has been a gap of where we haven't seen her performing, and whether or not that's because she's being bound by these restrictions or not, we can't really tell, until Britney actually comes forward with a statement. We don't know. But what we do see is that, she has been an active adult. It seems, we don't know for sure, but it seems that she can handle herself. She's done her residency, and to be under a conservatorship, which is usually only intended for the elderly who cannot take care of themselves or those that have been in a major accident that mentally cannot do their finances or take care of themselves. This is a very interesting and a different way a conservatorship is being held.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Stephanie Weaver, thanks for being here on News Now, coming out of Los Angeles. We'll talk to you soon about not only this story, but other stories too that you continue to follow throughout the weeks.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
You too.